Hi everybody, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video, I am going to attempt to epoxy a wine glass. I have never epoxied glass before, so this is going to be my very first time trying this, and I thought, why not try it with y'all? So let's get started with this wine glass. What you see in front of me is a wine glass from the Dollar Tree. So all it is a normal wine glass. I just put it on my cup turner like so. What I'm going to be doing first is wiping this wine glass down with 91% alcohol. You want to make sure that your alcohol is 91%. 70 or 71% is not high enough to clean the surface of this glass. So just like your tumbler, I'm just going to wipe it down very well. I'd rather have more alcohol on here than less. Make sure you're getting the bottom. You're going to see fingerprints or some smudges on your wine glass, so I'm really trying to focus on those and to get those off so I can have a clear glass. Now that my wine glass is wiped down with my 91% alcohol, I'm going to take some painter's tape and I'm just going to tape the top of my wine glass. The reason why I'm doing this is because a lot of people, they don't use straws with wine glasses, so they're going to put their mouth on this lip, and I don't want them to put their mouth on the glass itself with the epoxy. So I'm going to try to focus on epoxying just the bottom of this. But what I'm going to be doing is, just in case my epoxy does kind of creep up the top, which I'm hoping it doesn't, I'm going to have kind of like a protective little tape piece so the epoxy doesn't go up on the top of the lip. And you can see it's nothing fancy. I'm just putting a protective layer just over the top of that wine glass. I'm now going to place my wine glass back on the cup turner, and I'm going to turn on my cup turner again. And I just realized that I just touched all over this wine glass, so I'm just going to give it a nice wipe down again with my 91% alcohol. For my next step of this wine glass, I'm going to be mixing my epoxy. Once I mix my epoxy, I'm going to sound a little funny. It's because I'm going to be wearing my respirator mask, so please bear with me. Once I'll have my epoxy made, we'll go ahead and move on with the next step. Welcome back, everybody. I have my epoxy mixed in my Dixie cup. I have about 10 milliliters of epoxy mixed. So that's about 5 milliliters part A and 5 milliliters of part B, totaling 10 milliliters of epoxy. So make sure you have your heat gun close to you because I am going to try to use my heat gun for this. I'm going to be turning on my cup turner, and I'm going to be applying my epoxy on my wine glass. So what I'm going to be doing is focusing on the bottom of my wine glass, and I'm going to be adding a lot of epoxy on the bottom. So I'm probably just going a third way up on the wine glass. But like I said, I'm going to be adding a good amount. So I want to make sure I'm adding a lot because I'm going to be adding alcohol inks to this. So I want the alcohol inks to kind of move. And it doesn't have to be very even. It doesn't have to be straight like on the wine glass. I'm just adding it towards the bottom. And if it goes a little curvy, then that's okay. And I'm just going to make sure I'm adding it underneath, so the very bottom of the tumbler. Now that I have my epoxy on my wine glass, I'm now going to take my alcohol inks and I'm going to place it on the bottom of my wine glass. And it's probably just going to run right down, and that is okay. So I am using 2 colors from Holtz. I'm using Wild Plum and Aquamarine. And I might be adding some white as well. I'm not sure yet. Like I said, this is my first time doing this, so we're going to see how this works out. So it is going very well so far. It's going on the bottom. And so what I wanted to do was kind of put that white on here as well to kind of separate those colors. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white. And you're going to see those 2 colors kind of separate, kind of pop. Now I'm going to go in with my heat gun. I'm going to be using my Wagner heat gun on high, and I'm going to hit it with heat so the epoxy can kind of go up the tumbler. So that's why I started at the bottom. I want the epoxy to move up towards the tumbler, but not all the way up to the lip. So you can see that the colors are moving more. And I'm going to take my finger and kind of fan this up. And if you don't have a heat gun, or if you want to use a hair dryer, you can also use that as well. Now for my next step, I'm going to be turning off my cup turner. I'm going to take my pin out of my cup turner, take it off, and just have my cup sit upside down like so. So you're going to see some of the epoxy drip down. That's what you want to see. You want it to slowly drip down, or I should say slowly drip to the top of the cup, but you don't want it to reach the entire cup. If it's not dripping as much as you like, just take your heat gun and add a little bit of heat. Now that I've added heat to my tumbler, I'm going to place it back on my cup turner. And I'm going to be placing my tumbler back on. So your tumbler should look similar to mine. Now you're going to notice the inks separating, becoming very thin. That's what I like. So if you want to keep it like this, you can see how the whites kind of collided or mixed with the blue and the purple. I really like that. I'm going to be zooming in so you guys can see a little bit more closely. So this is it for this tumbler. What I'm now going to do is I'm just going to go around my tumbler and just see any areas that the epoxy might have kind of crawled up, like this spot right here. I'm going to take my baby wipe and just wipe away that part. So I'm not going to be chasing my turner. I'm just going to allow it to spin, and whenever that spot comes around, that's when I take my baby wipe and I'm just going to wipe away that area. You can see it wipes away just fine. Now that I'm satisfied with my epoxy and my inks on my wine glass, I'm just going to let it spit on my cup turner for about 4 to 5 hours. After 4 to 5 hours, I'm going to turn off my cup turner. After I turn off my cup turner, I'm going to allow my wine glass to air dry or air cure for another 20 hours. I just want to make sure my epoxy is completely cured. I like to make sure I let it sit for at least 24 hours because that's how I know it is completely cured. Do keep in mind, if your epoxy did rise up or touch this painter's tape, make sure you take off your painter's tape right after you epoxy while your epoxy is still wet. If you do not take off your painter's tape, the epoxy is going to adhere to the painter's tape and cure to the painter's tape. Whenever the epoxy is cured to the painter's tape, it's going to be stuck forever and you're going to ruin your wine glass. So make sure you take off your tape. So it did not touch my tape, so I'm just going to take mine off anyways. So that way, maybe me taking mine off, it might remind you to remove your tape as well. So I'm going to let this wine glass spin. I'm going to let it cure, and then I'll be back in about 24 hours. I'll see y'all then. Hi everybody, I'm back with my tumbler and I just removed it from the cup turner and I'm now going to take the foam from the inside of the tumbler out. And here is my beautiful wine glass. I absolutely love how this turns out, and the best thing about this is this wine glass is completely finished. You don't have to do another coat of epoxy, you don't have to clean the inside or the rim. All I would do is just wash it down with some Dawn dish soap and some water and you will be good to go. These wine glasses are a beautiful gift and they're so easy to make. If you do want to add a decal to the top of this wine glass, I would add a permanent or 651 or higher decal, meaning either permanent or marine grade decal, and I wouldn't even epoxy over it. The permanent decal should stick. So if you do know anything about 681 decals, that's the decal that I would add. That's the type of vinyl that I would add, 651 or higher. I know a lot of time marine grade is classified as 681. I would only add the decal and not epoxy over and just hand wash. Now I'm not saying that if you do add the decal and epoxy over, it won't be wrong. You can always do that. I would add the decal here. I would epoxy. I would tape off the top just to make sure the epoxy doesn't go on the top of the rim. I would like for y'all to see another wine glass that I created as well. So I will be adding the colors to this wine glass in my description below. I really like how this one turned out. I also created this beautiful blue one as well. While the epoxy was still wet, I took my gloved finger and I just kind of made circles. I wanted to see how that look would turn out to make it kind of look like the ocean. So I thought this one turned out fun as well. And here are the 3 wine glasses. I thought maybe placing them in front of a white background might help you see them better. And let me know in the description below which one's your favorite. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tumbler and craft videos. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see y'all next time.